Non-duality is a word which points to the insight that reality is not dual or not two. In other words, everything in existence fundamentally, ultimately, is one, the same. Separations and boundaries are an illusion. There's no such thing as separate objects. Even two things that are seemingly completely opposite, such as fire and water, or man and woman, or earth and sun, or me and you, ultimately all these things are pieces, or parts, or expressions of the same one universe. They're manifestations of the same reality, and therefore they're unified by an underlying oneness. At first glance, this idea of oneness sounds ridiculous because obviously this body is not physically attached to everything in the universe. I mean, I'm over here, you're over there. It seems very real and clear and obvious that there's a difference between this body and the air around it, the chair it's sitting on, the planet it lives on, the sun, the moon, the stars, etc. But just because we perceive these boundaries and separations doesn't mean that they're a real fundamental part of reality. I mean, after all, a cloud seems very different and separate from the ocean, but soon enough that cloud turns to rain, which falls into the ocean, and suddenly the two have become one and are indistinguishable. That's just a metaphor, but I want to be clear that non-duality is not a belief. It's a scientific reality. The oneness and unity and interconnectedness of all things has been repeatedly demonstrated by science. I'll share a few ways that science has demonstrated that the same boundaries which seem so real to us are actually illusions. The first scientific discovery which demonstrated the oneness of the universe was the Big Bang Theory, which just about 100% of scientists agree is the only way of describing how the universe has gotten to where it is today. The Big Bang Theory tells us that billions of years ago, when the entire universe was the size of a marble, there was no matter yet in existence, not even a single atom. Back here, the universe started as an undivided, undifferentiated, unified, single ball of pure energy. And today's universe is still comprised of this single substance, of this one energy. That is the source of all of this. The entire universe and everything in it started from the same point as the same thing. So fundamentally, man and woman, love and hate, light and dark, it's all made of this same energy. All of it is just another expression of the same one universe. Quantum physics is another recent advance in science which indisputably points to the idea that oneness is the reality of the universe. I'm not a quantum physicist, so I can't explain this as well as I would like to, but I do understand that on the subatomic level, the idea of separate objects just completely breaks down. Quantum physics has destroyed the idea that big objects are made of lots of little objects. Particles can't be understood as isolated objects. They can only be understood through their relations and interactions with other particles. Here's a quote from this book, The Tao of Physics by Fritjof Capra. Sorry if I mispronounced that, I probably did. Quantum theory forces us to see the universe not as a collection of physical objects, but rather as a complicated web of relations between the various parts of a unified whole. Science proves that the same boundaries which seem so real and clear to us are actually just illusions. They don't really exist. Throughout history, the oneness and unity of the universe has only really been supported by mystics or gurus who, in deep meditative or psychedelic states, have intuitively, directly experienced and known this unity to be true. But I want to show people that now, with our recent advances in science, non-duality is also rational, logically, empirically true. And this finally brings us to the word spirituality. In my opinion, the central questions on any spiritual journey are, who am I? What is this? What is this experience? And non-duality casts all these questions in a completely new light. I mean, What is the meaning of me once you see that this is one with the totality? What happens to self after you recognize that this body is not separate or different from anything else? There is no subject versus objects. There is no seer versus seen. There is no knower versus known. Non-duality rips off these shallow, superficial identities which screen and distort and warp our perspective. Underneath identity, underneath thoughts, underneath beliefs and memories is just this pure awareness. In my opinion, non-duality is the crucial, key, missing piece which finally bridges science and spirituality. And that's really important because I think if more people start to see that spirituality is not based in belief or religious dogma, but that it's rational and logical and empirical, then more people hopefully start to pay attention. And I say hopefully because it's very clear that having this deeper spiritual dimension in your life is fundamental to living with peace, both on an individual and on a social level.